Imagine yourself lying in bed, the lights dimmed, and the world outside beginning to slow. The air feels soft, cool against your skin. You take a deep breath, and for the first time today, everything feels still. Tonight, you don't need to think or hurry. You only need to listen. Because somewhere far away, beneath northern skies and quiet forests, old stories are waiting calm, wistful and full of gentle ghosts who mean no harm. They move through castles and lakeside manors, through cobblestone streets and moonlit halls, whispering their memories like lullabies. As you listen, let your thoughts drift like mist over water. Each sound, each image, each story will lead you deeper into rest where history sighs and the world becomes soft again. You're safe here. You're home in the quiet. And tonight, Sweden will dream with you through the echoes of its haunted places and the peace that lives within them. Now, close your eyes and let the stories begin. Story 1. Borgvattnet Vicarage, Jämtland. In the far north of Sweden, where the winters stretch endlessly and the snow falls in slow, silent sheets, lies the tiny village of Borgvattnet. It is a place wrapped in stillness, a white world that swallows all sound except for the sigh of the wind. And in its heart stands a modest wooden house, gray with age and bowed under the weight of centuries. This is the Borgvattnet Vicarage, a place where the veil between past and present feels whisper thin. You can imagine arriving there at dusk, the sky bruised purple, the air so cold it burns your lungs. Inside, the floors creak softly underfoot, and every step seems to echo through rooms that remember too much. The scent of old pine wood and candle wax lingers, and somewhere, the faint rustle of fabric as if someone has just turned away down a hallway. The stories began long ago, with vicars who lived and died within these walls. They spoke of strange happenings, chairs moving on their own, the feeling of being watched from unseen corners, and the gentle weeping of women late at night when the wind was still. One vicar wrote in his journal that he saw figures sitting quietly in the rocking chair, swaying, though the air was calm. Visitors who stay here sometimes wake to find the furniture rearranged, or their clothes scattered across the floor, as if unseen hands have been searching for something lost. Yet, there is no menace in these gestures, only a kind of longing. The vicarage feels inhabited not by anger, but by memory itself. You picture the house in candlelight soft, trembling flames illuminating faded photographs on the walls, faces of people long gone, the vicar's wife with her kind eyes, the small child who died too young. And perhaps the visitors feel them still because they never truly left, only lingered, gently, in the air between rooms. Outside, the snow continues to fall heavy and quiet. The whole world seems to hush itself. Inside, you hear the slow, rhythmic creak of the rocking chair again. Steady and patient. Maybe she sits there still, the woman they call the Gray Lady, waiting for someone to listen, someone to remember. If you stay very still, you might feel the softest brush of cold air against your cheek, like a sigh, or a hand reaching out from another time, not to harm, only to remind you that every house, no matter how silent, keeps its stories alive beneath the dust. And when you finally close your eyes in Borgvattnet, the sound of the chair fades, the floorboards grow quiet, You realize that in this little house of whispers and candlelight, peace and haunting are one and the same. And beyond the next hill, the road leads south toward a castle of crimson stone and royal echoes. The night deepens, and the journey continues. Story 2, Gripsholm Castle, Mariefred. The road winds through forests and fields until it reaches the shores of Lake Mälaren, where Gripsholm Castle rises like a dream carved from dusk itself. Its round towers and red brick walls glow faintly in the fading light, their reflections trembling across the still surface of the water. Time moves differently here. You can almost hear the centuries sighing through the corridors. The soft murmur of voices long vanished. Built in the 16th century, Gripsholm has seen monarchs come and go, kings, queens, courtiers, all leaving traces behind, like fingerprints pressed into the air. The scent of candle smoke and velvet still lingers in its halls. The portraits that line the walls watch quietly, their eyes following you with the patience of centuries. They say that at night, when the tourists have gone and only moonlight drifts through the high windows, the castle stirs awake. Footsteps echo in the corridors, though no one walks there. A door closes softly in an empty chamber, and from the long gallery where the portraits hang, there comes the faintest sound, the hush of fabric, the rustle of a dress brushing the stone floor. Some say it is Princess Elizabeth, imprisoned here by her own father, King Gustav Vasa. She was never cruel, only forgotten, a royal daughter locked away within the castle walls for reasons lost to time. Her sadness lingers like perfume in the air. They say she walks at night beneath the painted ceiling, her pale form gliding from one room to another, pausing as if searching for someone who might remember her name. In the great tower, a single candle sometimes flickers even when no one is there to light it. Guards once claimed they saw a figure kneeling beside the window, weeping quietly into her hands. When they approached, the light went out, yet the air remained warm, as though someone had just been there. You can almost feel it, that tender sorrow that fills old places. Gripsholm does not frighten, it sighs. It holds its ghosts the way a forest holds mist, naturally, softly, without resistance. Outside, the lake mirrors the castle perfectly, turning the red walls into an image of fire floating upon glass. If you watch long enough, the reflection wavers, and for an instant, the castle appears empty in the water, as though the spirits within have stepped outside to breathe the cool night air. Some travelers say that in the deepest hour before dawn, when all is silent, the sound of a music box can be heard faintly from the upper floors, a delicate tune, half remembered, carried down through the years. Perhaps it belonged to the princess herself, a lullaby she once played when the world outside felt far away. And so Gripsholm remains half castle, half memory. By morning, it is only a tourist's dream again, bright halls, sunlight, laughter. But when night returns, the water grows still, and her footsteps begin again, moving softly through the endless hush of royal chambers. Further south, beyond the lakes and forests, another grand house waits in the quiet, where mirrors shimmer and unseen hands open doors with care. Story 3, Drottningholm Palace, Island. As dawn fades once more into twilight, your journey drifts toward Loven Island, where Drottningholm Palace rests beside the calm waters of Lake Mälaren, a dream of marble and gold asleep beneath drifting clouds. Even by moonlight, its symmetry feels too perfect, too serene, as though the building itself is holding its breath. The gardens lie vast and silent, trimmed hedges glowing pale under frost. Somewhere, a fountain murmurs quietly, but the water never seems to ripple. This is the residence of royalty, yet even kings and queens cannot keep the past from whispering. For beneath the chandeliers and velvet drapes, shadows have always lingered a little too long. They say one figure wanders here, most often the White Lady. No one knows who she was, a servant girl, a queen, or perhaps a guardian of the house itself. But those who have seen her describe her the same way: tall, graceful, her gown trailing behind her like mist. She glides through the halls without sound, her face calm, eyes downcast, as if still attending to duties that never ended. Once, a chambermaid fled the palace after seeing her standing at the end of a long corridor, lit only by the faint glow of moonlight. The woman claimed the air grew suddenly colder, yet the apparition smiled, almost kindly, before fading into the stone wall. Others have heard the soft swish of her skirts in the stairwell, or glimpsed her reflection moving behind them in the mirrors of the guest rooms. In the Royal Theatre, built more than 2 centuries ago, the silence deepens. Wooden seats wait in perfect rows, and the old stage creaks as if remembering 1,000 forgotten performances. Actors who rehearse late say they sometimes feel the presence of an audience unseen, patient, listening, a faint clapping, a sigh from the shadows, perhaps the spirits of musicians or noble guests who once attended grand evenings here, unwilling to leave their favorite play unfinished. If you close your eyes, you can almost hear the soft tuning of a violin, the rustle of silk gowns brushing the floor. The sound swells gently, then fades again, leaving only the whisper of wind against the palace windows. But nothing in Drottningholm feels malicious. The air carries sadness. Yes, but also reverence, as though the walls themselves remember every laugh, every tear, every promise made beneath the chandeliers. It is a house that breathes in harmony with its ghosts, and together they maintain the rhythm of an eternal waltz. Sometimes, when the king's guards pass through the courtyard at midnight, they report the faint scent of lilacs, though the gardens have long gone dark. The scent lingers near the eastern wing, where the White Lady is said to appear before moments of great change in the royal family. Not as an omen of dread, but as a quiet reminder that even among grandeur, time is still fragile. Beyond the gilded halls, the water laps softly against the shore, and the stars shimmer across the lake like scattered diamonds. The palace sleeps again, its spirits at rest for now. And if you continue your journey southward, through winding roads and mist-covered meadows, you'll find another place of old walls and deeper longing, a manor where love, loss, and waiting have never truly ended. Story 4. Toftaholm Herrgård, Vittaryd. South of the Great Lakes and pine forests, where morning mist gathers low over the fields, stands a pale yellow manor by the waterside, Toftaholm Herrgård. The house looks peaceful at first glance, its windows glowing warmly, its gardens neat and calm. Yet when the night deepens, and the fog drifts in from the lake. The air begins to hum with something unspoken. It is not fear. It is memory. Once, this was a place of promise, a grand estate owned by noble families, alive with laughter and song. But long ago, a young woman named Helena was promised in marriage to a man she did not love. Her heart belonged to another, a humble stable hand whose kindness shone brighter to her than any title or fortune could. They would meet in secret beneath the old oak by the water's edge, whispering dreams of running away together. But dreams, like morning fog, do not always last. On the eve of her arranged wedding, Helena's lover was discovered and banished from the estate. The next morning, as guests arrived and candles were lit, Helena was nowhere to be found. They searched the manor and the gardens, calling her name until the sky grew gray. Finally, they found her chamber door locked from within. The story says she took her own life with her wedding veil wrapped around her throat, her heart broken beyond repair. And ever since, her sorrow has lived on within the walls of Toftaholm Herrgård, a sadness that never quite fades. Guests who stay in room 246, said to be her former chamber, speak of strange sensations, a sudden chill, the sound of a woman weeping softly, or the gentle tug of invisible fingers at the sheets. Some wake to find the window open, though they remember closing it tight. Others hear the faint rustle of silk near the mirror, as if a bride still stands there, adjusting her veil, unsure whether to stay or go. The staff never speak harshly of her. They light candles in her room at dusk and let them burn through the night, believing it comforts her, the lost bride waiting for a love that never returned. Even in sorrow, her presence feels tender, almost protective. She is not a ghost to be feared, but a soul that lingers to remember what might have been. If you stand outside beneath the oak tree, you can see her story reflected in the lake, pale ripples crossing the surface like the folds of a forgotten gown. The air smells faintly of lilac and old lace, and for a moment, it feels as if time itself has stopped to listen. Inside, the manor grows quiet again. A door clicks shut. Somewhere above, the floorboards creak softly like a gentle step. Perhaps she is still walking, still searching, still listening for a voice that once promised her forever. And beyond the lake, where the wind carries the sound of distant bells, another fortress waits, older, colder, and steeped in royal history. Its stones remember every whisper of betrayal and grace. Story 5, Kalmar Castle, Kalmar. By the edge of the Baltic Sea, where salt air mingles with the scent of pine and time seems to fold in on itself, stands Kalmar Castle, a fortress of pale stone rising above the water like a memory that refuses to fade. It has guarded Sweden's coast for nearly 800 years, watching kings rise and fall, wars bloom and wither, and peace return only to tremble again. From a distance, it looks serene, its reflection rippling across the calm waves beneath a moonlit sky. But inside those walls, echoes still walk beside the living. When you cross the drawbridge and step into the courtyard, the air feels thicker, as though it carries the weight of centuries. The faint scent of damp stone lingers. Somewhere, a distant clink of metal, or perhaps it's just the sea wind teasing the old chains. You cannot be sure. It is said that in one of the highest towers, a queen once wept for her child who never returned from the battlefield. In another, a prisoner carved prayers into the walls with his nails, each word now softened by time. And somewhere deep below, where torches once flickered against cold brick, the restless still stir not in anger, but in remembrance. The most whispered story is that of the gray-cloaked woman. She appears along the upper corridor, moving slowly, her cloak sweeping the floor. Some say she was a noble woman betrayed by her lover, who fled the castle by night and never looked back. Others claim she was a servant who took her own life after being accused of treason. Whatever her truth, she walks still, seen by guards, visitors, and even kings. Witnesses describe a faint glow preceding her, a silvery shimmer that passes through the walls like mist. She never speaks. She only pauses, turning her head as if to look at something that no longer exists. Then she continues on, vanishing into the stones themselves. In the great hall, when the sea wind rises, the tapestries sway though the windows remain closed. Some say it's the breath of those who once danced there centuries ago. The rustle of silk gowns, the echo of laughter. The music is gone, but the rhythm remains faint, like a heartbeat under the floor. You wander toward the chapel, where light filtered through narrow windows, casting long golden beams onto the ancient pews. Dust drifts like snow in the still air. There, you might feel a sudden warmth beside you, the gentle pressure of another presence kneeling in prayer. Perhaps the Queen herself still asking the heavens for peace. Outside, the sea sighs against the stones, the tide whispering secrets only castles understand. The moon reflects upon the water, and the towers shimmer faintly, their shadows leaning long across the waves. Kalmar Castle does not haunt in cruelty. Its ghosts are patient, weary perhaps, but tender guardians of memory, keeping the past from slipping too far away. And when you step back across the drawbridge into the cool night, you carry a piece of their stillness with you. The sea air is soft, the stars like frost above. The road leads west now, toward the city of Gothenburg, where a hilltop fortress keeps watch over centuries of silence and shadow. Story 6, Skansen Kronan Fortress, Gothenburg. High above the cobblestone streets of Gothenburg, where the city lights flicker like scattered candles below, stands a lone stone crown upon a hill, Skansen Kronan Fortress. It has watched the centuries unfold in silence, its thick gray walls worn smooth by the salt winds that roll in from the sea. By day on, it feels like a monument to strength. By night, it feels like a memory of something forgotten. When you climb the winding path toward it, the city's noise fades behind you, replaced by the whisper of wind through the grass. The fortress rises from the hill like a great sleeping beast, round and solid, its windows dark. You might imagine the sound of boots once striking the stone floors, the rhythm of soldiers long gone, their laughter echoing faintly from the past. It was built in the 17th century to defend the city from invasion, but no battle ever reached its walls. Instead, the silence itself became its legacy. Over time, it served as a prison, a warehouse, a barracks, and in each of its lives, it collected the sighs of those who passed through its corridors. Locals tell of footsteps that climb the spiral staircase long after closing hours. Guards who once patrolled the grounds reported hearing low murmurs in the empty halls, voices calling softly in languages no longer spoken. One late evening, a caretaker swore he saw a figure in full military dress standing by the western wall, his back turned toward the city. When the caretaker called out, the man simply faded into the stone. There is also talk of a woman of faint outline seen near the upper windows, her form bathed in silver light. No one knows who she was, but some say she waited for someone who never returned from war. Her shadow has been seen staring out toward the harbor, where the ships used to sail away beneath gray skies. She stands motionless, eternal, as if she has made peace with her waiting. Inside, the air is cool and dry, scented faintly with old stone and dust. Torches once hung along these walls. Now, electric light hums softly, pale and subdued. Yet if you listen closely, beneath the hum you can hear the faint echo of a drum, slow, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Sometimes, when fog rolls in from the sea, the hill disappears beneath a veil of white. Locals say that's when the fortress awakens fully. The shapes of men in uniform appear in the mist, marching soundlessly across the grass. A bugle's note drifts through the air, sharp but distant, and then nothing. Only silence, heavy and absolute. You stand for a while on the hill, watching the city lights shimmer far below, thinking of how many lives have passed beneath this same cold stone crown. The fortress holds them all not as ghosts, but as echoes. Gentle reminders that even places built for war eventually learn to rest. As dawn begins to creep across the horizon, the fortress fades into soft gray. The mist begins to lift. The wind quiets. And down below, the old streets of Gothenburg begin to wake. If you listen closely, the next story drifts in from the heart of the capital, from narrow streets paved in gold and shadow, where every window hides a secret, and every whisper sounds like history breathing. Story 7, Gamla Stan, Stockholm's Old Town. In the heart of Stockholm, where the city's pulse slows to the rhythm of footsteps on ancient stone, lies Gamla Stan, the Old Town. Its narrow streets twist and fold like pages in a forgotten book, lined with ochre and amber buildings that lean toward one another as if sharing secrets. Lanterns burn low in iron brackets, their light trembling across cobblestones still slick from the evening rain. Here, the night feels older than the city itself. You wander through the silence after midnight. The tourists are gone, and the world is wrapped in a hush that belongs only to the past. Every echo of your step seems to awaken something watching, not menacing, but curious. The scent of rain and faint candle wax drifts through the alleys. A cat darts across the path and disappears beneath an archway that seems to lead nowhere at all. Gamla Stan is said to be home to many ghosts, kings, merchants, soldiers, and lovers, but none are cruel. They are part of the town, woven into its breath. Locals speak of the White Lady of Brenda Tompton, a woman seen gliding between the buildings near a small square where the air never seems to warm. She appears as a soft light in the mist, her outline shimmering, her gown floating just above the stones. Some say she was a merchant's wife who waited for her husband's ship that never returned from sea. Others think she was a maid who lost her life in one of the old fires that swept through these streets centuries ago. Whatever her story, she walks quietly still, drawn to the same corners, tracing paths no longer visible in daylight. On quiet nights, people who live above the square say they hear gentle knocking on their doors, followed by silence. Others hear the sound of music drifting faintly from nowhere, the pluck of a lute, the low hum of a voice singing an old song of farewell. And once in a while, a visitor swears they see a shadow step from one wall to another, only to vanish at the turn of a corner that wasn't there a moment before. But Gamla Stan's ghosts are not bound by sorrow. They seem to belong to the rhythm of the place, like the way the fog curls through the streets or the way the church bells echo against the rooftops. Even the great Storkirken Cathedral holds whispers in its stones, the sound of prayers spoken by those long gone, lingering softly in the air above the pews. You pause near the royal palace, its vast silhouette rising at the edge of the old town. A single window glows faintly, though no one lives in that wing anymore. For centuries, guards have claimed to see a figure standing there, a pale woman looking out over the square, her hands folded as if waiting for someone's return. They call her Den Vita Damen, the same white lady who appears before moments of great change in Sweden's royal family, just as she does at Drottningholm. Perhaps she travels between these places, bound not by walls but by remembrance. As you leave Gamla Stan, the early light of dawn begins to spill across the stones, turning the rain puddles to gold. The ghosts grow quiet, their world slipping once more behind the thin veil of day. Further west, beyond the city's edge, another fortress waits among the cliffs, a ruin where wind and time have carved the silence into something eternal. Story 8. Bohus Fortress, Kungälv. North of Gothenburg, where the river Göta Älv winds through forests and mist, stands Bohus Fortress, a gray crown of weathered stone perched upon its lonely hill. The landscape feels vast and patient here, as though the land itself remembers the centuries it has watched. When you approach, the fortress rises out of the fog like a ghost made of earth tall, stoic and solemn, its towers softened by moss and rain. The walls of Bohus have seen more than 400 years of struggle. Built in the 1300s, it once guarded the border between Sweden and Norway, enduring siege after siege. Cannonballs have left their scars in the stone marks of battles that no longer echo, save for the faint thrum of wind through the arrow slits. Yet even in ruin, it has never truly fallen. Inside, the air is cool and hollow. The corridors twist downward into chambers where daylight barely reaches. The stone is damp, breathing faintly with the pulse of the river below. It's here, deep beneath the fortress, that the old stories live. They tell of prisoners who carved prayers into the walls, words still faintly visible beneath lichen and moss. Some speak of a captain who betrayed his men and was walled alive inside one of the towers, his pleas echoing until they merged with the wind. But the most enduring legend belongs to the woman they call the Lady of the North Tower. She appears only when storms roll in from the sea, a figure in a dark gown, her face veiled, her form outlined by lightning. Witnesses say she drifts along the ramparts, her steps silent, her head turned toward the horizon. Some believe she was once a noblewoman imprisoned for loving an enemy soldier. Others claim she was a healer accused of witchcraft, who died within the fortress walls during the winter famine. Whatever her truth, the storm always seems to remember her name. When the rain begins, the fortress hums. The drops strike the stone in uneven rhythm, like fingers tapping out an old song. If you listen long enough, the sound changes, becomes a pattern, a pulse, a whispering voice carried by the wind. It seems to say, I am still here. At twilight, when fog drifts in from the river, the towers disappear into pale gray. The fortress feels alive then, breathing with the mist, its stones warm to the touch. Locals who walk the grounds at dusk sometimes feel a sudden warmth upon their shoulders, as if a hand rests there gently, not in warning, but in comfort. Bohus does not haunt with malice. Its ghosts are weary, ancient, and kind. They have seen too many winters to wish anyone harm. Instead, they remain like guardians keeping watch over the hills, the river, and the silence they've known for so long. As night deepens, the mist begins to thin. You turn to leave, and the fortress fades behind you, its towers blending once more with the clouds. The river below glows faintly beneath the moon, carrying its stories out toward the open sea. Further south, where the fields give way to windswept plains, stands another relic of stone and memory, a medieval castle so old it seems carved from myth itself, where shadows whisper of nights and forgotten vows. Story 9, Glimmingehus Castle, Scania. In the rolling countryside of southern Sweden, where the land stretches flat beneath the weight of gray clouds, stands Glimmingehus, a medieval fortress that has outlasted empires. Built of cold stone and quiet strength, it rises from the fields like an ancient watchtower, its narrow windows staring into the endless mist. Crows circle its roof, and the wind hums through the battlements like a memory that never learned to fade. At first glance, it feels abandoned, but step through its great wooden door, and you sense the hush of unseen company. The floors whisper underfoot, and the air smells faintly of iron, dust, and something older, like the pages of a book left open for centuries. Glimmingehus was built in the late 1400s by a knight named Jens Holgersson Ulfstand, a man known for his pride and wealth, but also for his fear of treachery. He filled his home with clever traps, false doors, secret rooms, murder holes, and moats designed to keep danger out. But legends say the true danger came from within. They say Jens was cursed by his own cruelty, that his greed chained his spirit to the castle long after his body was gone. Servants told stories of hearing his heavy boots pacing the stone corridors at night, his armor rattling softly as if he still patrols the halls. Some even claim to see him standing in the great hall beside the fireplace, staring into the flames with eyes as pale as the moonlight spilling through the window. There are gentler spirits here too. A young maid who fell from the tower while hanging laundry is said to drift along the stairwell, her voice like a sigh caught in the wind. At times, visitors feel her pass a brush of cold air, a faint scent of lavender, and for a heartbeat, the castle seems to breathe again. In the kitchen, pots sometimes sway gently on their hooks when no wind blows. A shadow moves behind the hearth, though the fire has long burned to ash. The locals say it is the ghost of a cook, still tending to invisible feasts, still waiting for masters who will never return. By torchlight, the walls come alive. You notice carvings worn smooth by time coats of arms, initials, prayers. The stones seem to whisper their stories to each other, carrying secrets from one century to the next. And if you listen closely, you might hear faint footsteps above you, circling endlessly through the rooms. Jens himself, perhaps, still guarding his fortress, still unable to rest. Outside, the wind sweeps across the moors, carrying the cry of distant birds. The castle stands unchanged, a silhouette against the pale horizon. In daylight, it is merely an old house of stone, but at night, it feels alive, humming softly with the memory of pride, loss, and endurance. As you leave, you glance back one last time. A flicker of light dances in an upper window just for a moment and then fades into darkness. And if you follow the road north through the forests and mines, beneath the slow-turning stars, you'll reach a place far older still, a labyrinth beneath the earth, where echoes outlive the living. Story 10. The Silver Mine of Sala, Västmanland. Deep beneath the forests of Västmanland lies the Silver Mine of Sala, a labyrinth of tunnels carved into the earth, glimmering faintly with the ghost of light. For nearly 500 years, men descended into its depths, chasing silver veins that shimmered like stars frozen underground. Today, the mine sleeps, yet the air still hums with echoes, as if the walls remember every voice that once called through the dark. The descent begins slowly, through damp tunnels lit only by dim lanterns. The temperature drops, and the air thickens with a scent of stone and iron. Water drips from the ceiling in slow, rhythmic beats, like the ticking of an old clock. Your footsteps sound too loud here, then not at all, swallowed by the depth. The miners called this place the kingdom below. Some never saw daylight again. Yet many believed they weren't alone down here, that the mine itself was alive, guided by something ancient and unseen. They spoke of the Silver Queen, a spirit who guarded the tunnels and watched over those who worked within them. Some said she appeared as a shimmer in the air, others as a woman in flowing white, her hair glinting like molten silver, her eyes kind but sad. They believed she rewarded honesty and punished greed. If a miner took more than his share, strange things would happen, tools vanishing, lamps extinguished, the path back to the surface lost in sudden darkness. But to those who worked humbly, she offered light. Many swore that when their torches failed, a faint glow would appear in the distance, leading them safely home. Today, travelers can still walk the old tunnels, guided by soft electric lamps. Yet many say the old stories remain. Tour guides speak of hearing whispers behind them when no one follows. Others feel a sudden breath of cold wind, though the air below should be still. In one of the lowest chambers, the Queen's Room, visitors sometimes find a mist forming in the shape of a woman's silhouette, silver and trembling. The temperature rises, not falls, as if she brings warmth instead of fear. If you sit in silence, the mind seems to breathe. The stone walls expand and contract with a sound almost like a sigh. Water drops echo endlessly, each one carrying the memory of the men who once waited for morning light that never reached them. And through it all, there's a faint hum, perhaps the resonance of the earth itself. Or perhaps a song the Silver Queen still sings beneath her breath. Some say she was once a miner's wife who died waiting for him to return, her soul fusing with the silver veins in her grief. Others say she is the spirit of the mine itself, the guardian of what lies hidden below. But whatever her origin, her presence feels calm, eternal, and tender, the kind of haunting that brings peace rather than dread. When you finally ascend to the surface, the first breath of cold night air feels lighter, thinner, like waking from a long dream. The forest sways gently overhead, silver leaves trembling beneath the moonlight. The mine sleeps once more beneath your feet, its heart glowing softly in the dark. Now the night grows quiet again, the stories fade, and the world rests in silence. You have wandered through centuries of whispers, castles, manors, and forgotten dreams, and now the voices settle into stillness. Let them drift away with the mist. Let the silence return. Close your eyes, the world is calm again. Good night.